to this ASI webinar on accessing and interpreting biodiversity information for high-level biodiversity screening. I'm Krista West, Director of Learning here at ASI, and I'm really excited to be introducing Dr. Eugenie Regan. Eugenie is the IBAT Manager for the UN Environment World Conservation Monitoring Centre in Cambridge, UK. And there she manages IBAT, and IBAT is the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool. There she manages IBAT on behalf of BirdLife, Conservation International, IUCN, and of course the UN Environmental World Conservation Monitoring Centre. She has wide expertise in biodiversity conservation with a focus on data monitoring, indicators, and accountability, the application of science to policy and decision making, and connecting biodiversity data providers with end users.
Thank you everybody for coming to the webinar, and thank you for the Aluminium Stewardship Initiative for this opportunity. A really great opportunity to present the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool, or IBAT, because we're in a phase of redevelopment and change, stopping changes, redeveloping the portal completely, and I suppose just really doing a step up in what we're providing for our users. So it's a really exciting time to be presenting to you. And as Krista mentioned, I work on behalf of BirdLife International, Conservation International, IUCN, and UN Environment World Conservation Monitoring Centre. And those four organisations form the IBAT Alliance. So what is the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool? It's a web-based map and reporting tool providing fast and easy integrated access to critical biodiversity information on priority species, legally protected areas, and internationally recognised areas. And really, I suppose our four organisations came together, and it was in 2010, so it's been running for quite a while, but recognising that we were stronger together and that we had these very important global biodiversity information data sets that were key for decision making. And by bringing them together, we're bringing a lot of added value and added interpretation for biodiversity decision making. Interestingly, it was initially co-developed with the World Bank Group, and it was specifically around supporting early implementation of their Performance Standard 6, the IFC's Performance Standard 6 specifically, with a focus on critical habitat screening. So it really originated around a use case from the private sector, and it's been very much focused on the users since. And I think that's one of the core strengths of IBAT. And just to say as well, I'm the IBAT manager, and I took over as the IBAT manager in January of this year. So just to give you a quick overview of some of our users, we have almost 60 companies who are IBAT users, but also, of course, IBAT is open for government users and researchers, and we have a lot more of those. In terms of the private sector, we've got a range of energy and extractive companies using it. We've over 20 financial institutions now, actually. European Investment Bank have just come on board, as have the French Export Credit Agency, so they're not on this list. Consultancies use it, and then there's a wider interest and growing use of it from other sectors as well. So Edith Umbrella Group, and I think I saw them on either the call today or the webinar tomorrow morning, General Motors, Heidelberg Cement, etc. So just some quotes from some of our users, and I think the one here from Conrad Sabi and IFC is particularly interesting. It says IBAT gives us access to experts and data on biodiversity that we can't get elsewhere, and really acknowledging that IBAT isn't just a data portal, but it's also the expertise behind it. And so within the four organisations, there's thousands of people working on this data. And so obviously we know the data backwards, and we put a lot of emphasis on a proper interpretation of the data as well. So it's one thing to just get access to information, but it's another, all that interpretation and expertise behind it. So I thought I'd just start off as well with a quick reflection on the Aluminium Stewardship Initiative performance standards around biodiversity. And I see that you've got a number of them. So one is around biodiversity assessment, the other is around biodiversity management, alien species, commitment to no-go in World Heritage properties, and mine rehabilitation. So IBAT is specifically, I suppose, used by companies for environmental due diligence screening. We hold the three most authoritative global data sets on biodiversity, and they are the World Database on Protected Areas, over 200,000 sites, the World Database on Key Biodiversity Areas, which is coming up to almost 20,000 sites. So that data has been updated since, and the IUCN Red List of Species, which is over 93,000 species layers. And these data are being updated constantly. So the World Database on Key Biodiversity on Protected Areas is updated once a month. And their aim is that they will get an update from every country in the world at least every 2 years. And if they don't hear from a country, then they will contact them, perhaps visit them, help build their database, or with capacity building, etc. The World Database on Key Biodiversity Areas is updated 2 to 3 times a year, and this data comes from a whole range of sectors from the national level, NGOs, governments, etc. And they're doing a huge piece of work around improving the quality of this data. And then the IUCN Red List of Species, again, is updated 2 to 3 times a year, and they are looking to aim for over 150,000 species to be within that database. And IBAT users can screen their projects against these data sets, as well as other data sets that we're looking to include from now on, like critical habitat and species richness. And another thing that you can do, and I'll show you in detail, you can generate bespoke reports for sharing with colleagues. So just to look at IBAT against the ISI performance standards, I think I picked out specifically the principle, so that an entity shall manage its biodiversity impacts in accordance with mitigation hierarchy to protect ecosystems, habitats, and species. And IBAT is seen as essential in best practice application of the mitigation hierarchy, I suppose specifically in avoidance, so of what biodiversity is there, and then that's the first step in making sure that you avoid it. But then also 8.1 biodiversity assessment, so it's used for desktop biodiversity risk screening, and then 8.4, which is commitment on no-go. IBAT gives companies access to up-to-date data on World Heritage property, so essential to adhering to this performance standards. I thought I'd just start off by framing it against the ASI performance standards. So this is our current online portal, and I don't know if any of you is familiar with the current IBAT portal. This is IBAT for Business. In fact, we've got 3 portals: IBAT for Research and Conservation, which is for universities and governments, etc. IBAT for Business, which is for private sector companies, and IBAT for World Bank Group, that's specifically for the financial institutions. And having 3 portals is definitely confusing, and also duplication for us. So we are moving to one portal, which will be where everybody will access the information. And this is being launched at the end of October. So it's a really exciting time for us. And I'll go in and talk a little bit more on that. So, and I'll have the URL at the end of these slides also, and I'll give a launch date to Krista so she can let people know when this comes online and you can start to play around with it. So if I'm to go to the new website, and if I was to go in and say, okay, I'm going to log in, this is the first screen that you would come into. And here it shows my projects and reports. So if you have projects that you've already inputted, you'll see them down here. And you'll see their overlap with protected areas, with IUCN Red List, with key biodiversity areas, as well as the dates that you've created that site on. So basically it's a site. So you can go into this black button, say, and you can look at my projects and reports you've done around that. So you can go into more detail than what's just down here. You can also go straight into data download. So if I'm, say, a consultant and I just want to come in and download the data, you can go straight to download the data, or you can go into the map, or you can go into this one, which is country profile. So firstly, I will dive into the mapping part of the new system. So very similar to our old system and similar to other mapping systems, you've got a standard map interface. And I'll just move the GoToWebinar stuff to one side so I can see a bit more clearly. And on the top, you'll have My Projects. You can click on this button and turn on all the projects that you have, and you can see them done against the map. Obviously, you can zoom in as well here, and you can turn off various layers as well. You can have satellite if you want. But the other thing I can do is apply layers. So if I was to click here, see, yeah, And I can see here sites of biodiversity importance. If I just go one up. Sites of biodiversity importance, you can see key biodiversity areas, and I can select all, or I could just have AZE selected and important bird areas selected. But also I can click on the World Database of Protected and Unprotected Areas, and I can click on by different filters as well. And here I've got it filtered either by, I can choose IUCN management category, I can choose to filter by governance type for protected areas, or I can choose to filter by designation. So I have chosen in this instance to turn on all key biodiversity areas, and you can see them all coming on here. This is again, we're in complete development phase at the moment, and we're in the full thick of it, so we're still deciding on colours. At the moment we've got a default pink, which is great colour. And I'll just zoom in here to Nigeria. So I zoomed in on the map and I went into Nigeria, and I also turned on satellite streets down the bottom. So I wanted to look and see much more detail in terms of the map that I'm seeing. So you can see the key biodiversity areas are in pink here, and it doesn't work yet, but I will be able to click on the layers and it will tell me which key biodiversity area it is, or if it's an IBA or AZE, and it will give me a fact sheet on that and a link back to the BirdLife Data Zone website with more information on the key biodiversity area. So what I can do next, if I go back a minute, down here on the bottom right, I've got a number of little tools, and that is I can either draw a line, or I can draw a polygon, or I can draw or add a dot. So if I want to add a site to this, what I do is I just take my cursor and I click on one of those tools, and then there's like, here's one I've made earlier, which is always in like this kind of baking shows. Here's one I've made earlier, and I just did a polygon here, and it's a new polygon, and I click save. So once I do that, I can go into the project page, and this gives me a summary of all the information for that site that I've created, or that project that I've created. So I labeled it Nigeria Test Project. It gives me my location, gives me the size of the site, the date it was created and created by, that's my login. It then shows me the overlap with numbers of species. So this particular site overlaps with 6 critically endangered species, 2 endangered, 8 vulnerable, etc., and a total of 840 species. And it also then overlaps with, this is with protected areas, so 52 protected areas, and I also have information on key biodiversity areas. So if I want to see what is this full list of species, then I create a new report. This is another functionality within IBAT, and it's in the current IBAT at the moment. It's used very heavily, but we've now added new functionality to it. So if I click on create a report, it will create a folder for me. It will have a nice PDF overview of information for that site, depending on the report I create, and I'll show you that in a second. But it also then gives me a CSV file of all of the data, and it also gives me maps for key biodiversity areas and protected areas for that site as well. So really, really useful. Before it just used to be PDFs, but now it has the CSV file and these separate maps as well, which is what users were asking for before. So if I clicked on that button, it will take me here to create a report. And I can either choose proximity, which is what's within a specific proximity that I select, so we've got buffers down here, or I can choose a PS6 report, which is an IFC PS6, and we're actually going to change the terminology to World Bank Group Risk Report. I can do a custom one, and we've also got these 2 new report functionalities as well, which is, one is freshwater. So if I'm just interested, maybe it's a hydroelectric power plant or something, and actually it's the freshwater species are going to be impacted on, I can look at it by hydro basins, either upstream or downstream of my project. And this also is a really useful feature when you're dealing with freshwater habitats. And then the final one there, which says TRI, is a multi-site report. So I could do one report across thousands of sites. And this is extremely useful if you want to do a sustainability report, corporate sustainability report, or a GRI report, as it says there. So that's the report options. And then this is just some screenshots of what the reports look like. So here we have a World Bank World Bank Group Risk Report on the left, and it shows on the front page the overlap with protected areas, key biodiversity areas, IUCN species red list, and it also has critical habitat in there because that's trigger for IFC PS6 as well as the ESS6, which is the environmental and social standards for the World Bank. And then for the proximity report, it's a simpler report. But in those reports, there will be full lists of the protected areas and key biodiversity areas, full lists of the endangered species, so critically endangered, vulnerable species, and then the full list of species, including least concern, will be in the CSV file that comes with the report as well. So that's a reporting functionality. If I'm interested in it, instead of a report, I want a download of my data. So I am a GIS specialist. I've been asked by colleagues to pull the data in and put it into our own GIS system and put in other data in, say, infrastructure, social information, etc. So you can do that in IBAT. You can either do a custom data download like I've done here, or basically I've drawn another polygon and it has calculated the area of that polygon, and I can also do a pay for that area, pay for that specific data as a once-off payment, or do it as part of my annual subscription, and I'll talk about subscriptions in a moment. Or you can go up here, which has the data download, and I can download the complete data sets. And let's see if this will allow me to move on. And this is the global spatial data. So you can download the full global world database of protected areas, world database of key biodiversity areas of the IUCN red list of species spatial data. You can download the full data sets here. So you can either do this custom download for a specific area, or you can do the full global download. And again, a key feature that's been looked for by many of our current users. So back to this dashboard page. So again, here you have, so my projects and reports, which is basically more details than what we see here down below, which lists all the projects and the overlaps. The data downloads, which I showed you, the data map, and also those country profiles. So if you want to just know the context, so for each country in the world, we've summarized the number of protected areas, key biodiversity areas, red listed species, etc., and given some statistics and trends for each country. And that's within the country profiles. And that's a functionality that we developed quite a lot in the current IBAT portal. And in this portal, we're rethinking how we do it and how we do it in a much more smooth and intuitive manner. So at the moment, I can't show you that because it's still under development. But the projects and reports, data downloads and data maps are the key things that most of our users look for in any case. And the country profiles will be delivered in November. So when we launch this on the 25th of October, most of the functionality will be there and some of it will be coming after that. So to summarize, on the portal, the key features are that it's a one-stop shop for protected areas, key biodiversity areas, and red list species data. It's the only place to access these data for commercial use. So these data are available through BirdLife Data Zone or IUCN Red List website or Protected Planet, but they all have commercial use restrictions. So for commercial users, the place to access them is through IBAT. You can use it to generate IFC PS6, GRI, and custom reports, amongst others. You can create a portfolio of sites, and you can download the data directly from source. And actually, another functionality that we're building in is web services. So if you want to pull the data directly into your own system, and some of our current users, such as Shell, do that. So rather than using the IBAT portal, you can use the web services and pull it directly into your own system if there is one internally in your company. Of course, we all know that good practice biodiversity risk management creates many positive opportunities, and that includes a whole host of things such as securing a license to operate, maintaining access to capital, and I suppose that was why the IFC PS6 report is so important for some of our users. It also helps reduce operating costs, and there's been lots of work on what causes project delays. And there was a recent piece of paper on delays it was specifically for oil and gas projects, but a huge portion of the delays were actually due to social and environmental issues. So I suppose addressing them up front helps avoid those delays. Enhancing reputation and brand, of course, is really key, and that's one of the other reasons our users really like IBAT. Improves productivity and staff morale, and then finally increasing market access. Specifically then for ASI members, what can IBAT do? Well, it's early, fast, efficient and cost-effective biodiversity risk screening. As I mentioned in the previous slide, it avoids project delays and risks up front. It is up-to-date authoritative biodiversity data, and it's data that underpins international performance standards. And I suppose as well the up-to-dateness is really important. So there are various versions of our data sets on different places for various reasons, but oftentimes they can be quite out of date. And we keep our data, especially with the new portal, is completely up to date. And as the World Database of Protected Areas is changing monthly, then it is important to have access to the most up-to-date information. You can also create these project PDF reports for environmental due diligence, or download data for internal GIS teams, but also there's an online mapping interface for instant risk screening, so quick kind of high-level risk screening. And then, of course, it helps identify and avoid no-go World Heritage sites, and that's a specific commitment outlined by the ASI. So sometimes as well, there's been a question about the cost of IBAT services. So now we're moving, the IBAT portal is free to log in and access the mapping system, etc. And when you want to add sites and do reports, then that's when you need the annual subscriptions, and I'll talk about them in a moment. But there's a cost for IBAT services because the estimated annual cost of maintaining and updating the 3 global data sets is between $6.5 million per year and $14 million. And it goes up to $14 million when we add in things like the register of ecosystems. And this was a paper by a colleague, Diego, who wrote this a few years ago. And he went back through all the costs, staffing costs, etc., to understand what was the real cost in updating and maintaining these. So the IBAT subscription fees are a way to start to recuperate some of this cost. It's never recuperates all of it, but at least it's a good contribution towards it. So the annual subscription pricing, as I mentioned, you can log in, create a profile within IBAT yourself for free, and you can view the visual data map and turn on and off the layers, etc. And then if you want to do things like create a site catalog and create proximity reports, then you start to go on to the annual subscriptions, and they are between $5,000 and $25,000 and $35,000 per year. And many of the large oil and gas companies are on the $25,000 and $35,000 per year, and a lot of the financial institutions are now on the $15,000 per year, just as an example of how people are using it. But then, as I mentioned, there's also, you can do specific payments. So if you want to just look at data for a specific area and download that, as I showed you, the custom data download, then you can do that. And for less than 2,500 kilometers square, it's $1,000, and then it goes up to $5,000 for up to 1 million square kilometers. And then also you can buy a single site report, and some of our users like to do this as well. So for a single site report, $750, and then for a multi-site report, which is like GRI, it's $5,000. So yeah, I think that's the key things I wanted to cover. Yeah, so just, is there any questions from anybody on that?
Hi there, Eugenie. This is Christelle. I'll organize the questions coming in. I guess the first question is, how do you typically see companies using the IBAT tool in their projects?
Okay, that's a really good question. So there's a number of different uses. I'm just going to write this down for me. The financial institutions will screen, they'll probably use it, I'm thinking about one specific company, they use it 10 to 12 times a day, and they are doing quick high-level risk screening using the map. They'll go and they'll zoom into their area, they might create a site, but they're quickly doing, okay, eyeballing, is there an issue here? Because they're doing 10 to 12 times a day, they just want a fast, quick answer. if then that brings up, okay, this area is actually within near a key biodiversity area or near a critically endangered species or whatever, then they will dive in further, they'll create a report, they'll look at the list of species, and then that will be attached to their final report when they make a recommendation for that investment opportunity, say. So that's with the financial institutions. But then people like General Motors will be doing things like pulling a whole lot of information together for their annual corporate sustainability reporting. But interestingly as well, they have been looking at where are the opportunities for them to have positive impacts on biodiversity. So they've been able to identify, okay, we've got some critically endangered species near our sites. Is there something we can do positive for those? And interestingly, they found a critically endangered merganser, a species of duck. They have been using offcuts from their factories to create nest boxes, and the critically endangered merganser has been breeding in them. So that's a really positive story of how someone is using the data. And then the large energy companies will again be using it very widely. Normally, a lot of them will be pulling the data through web services straight into their own systems, so within their own internal GIS systems, and lots of different staff will be accessing it on a daily basis.
I know you mentioned them earlier, but because we specifically mentioned them in our standard, what information would members have to access on World Heritage properties?
So they can either see the polygons, and then we will have information on that polygons, and it will also link you to, I think it links you to the Protected Planet site, which gives you more information for that World Heritage site. But also then you can download those polygons specifically. So if you wanted to, we've got the report functionality, so there's an automatic map that comes out that will have a map of your site with that. Or you can pull the polygons directly into your own GIS system. And I think that's a real advantage that you can then map those, against, say, infrastructure that you've already got into your own system.
Another practical question: what languages? We have members around the world. What languages is the platform available in?
That's a really good question. At the moment, it's just in English, but we did have a report previously that was in Spanish. So one of the reports, ISE PS6 report, was available in Spanish. That's something that we want to address and have it available in a number of languages as soon as possible.
A question, and probably more for me, but does ASI require members to subscribe to and use the IBAT tool? And the answer is that we don't. It is a recommended tool that's possible for companies to use in our guidance documents, but we don't prescribe anything. So it's a suggested tool, but it's not a mandatory tool from an ASI perspective. Another question for you, Eugenie. How often is the country data updated regarding protected areas?
Yes, the World Database on Protected Areas is updated on a monthly basis. So it could be an update from some countries rather than others. So it's whatever information has been updated at the time. And then, as I mentioned, the Protected Areas team, aim to get an update from every single country in at least every 2 years. And if they don't hear from a country, then they'll get in contact with them certainly, and they may visit them. And they're all the time as well getting additional funding where they can help build capacity to address some of the gaps or issues within protected areas. So, for example, the protected areas data was often just point data, and now they've managed to get most of the point data to polygons now, which is much more useful. Yeah.
Yeah, point is that practical in application. And so just to recap, so as information comes into you, it's updated in the tool monthly, but you actively go out into the world and source the data at least every 2 years for the countries where the information might not have come into you.
That's for protected areas, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Another question, do you know about any environmental agency that's using or accepting the reports in the licensing process? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't actually, but there's quite a lot of governments using it themselves. It was a United Arab Emirates actually that were using it. The government of Cameroon. These are just people I'm thinking off the top of my head. I know governments are using it, but I think it's a really good point about actually using the reports and licensing processes. And maybe I think it's from Eduardo. It would be really great to have examples of those types of reports, because it's something certainly we could develop within IBAT. So we're looking at what type of new developments people would like. And maybe that's the type of thing that we should be offering, is a report in a format that is useful for licensing process.
In terms of contacting you, what's the best way to contact you afterwards?
Yeah, so I have here is, so firstly this URL, IBAT/alliance.org. At the moment, it currently links you through to the 3 portals that we have. And once the new IBAT portal is online, that will take over that URL. Here's my contact address down there, and that's the general IBAT contact address. And that will either come to Nikita Ellis, who's the Finance and Admin Officer, or to me. One of us will pick it up. The other thing actually I was going to mention is on this, we would be happy to add people to our mailing list. And we haven't been using our mailing list at all yet, but we will use it to let people know that the new portal is up. And then we'll be mailing no more than once every 2 months, maybe, but probably less actually, just latest data that's up there or functionalities or whatever. So whoever would like to join our mailing list would really, really be happy with that.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure we can access it through the IBATalliance.org website.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Brilliant. Thanks, Krista. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Eugenie.